All right, thank you, Kalia. All right, great. Hey, I was coaching sixth grade basketball a long time ago when I had a sixth grader. And so we were in one of those games where things were a little bit tight, right? And things are riled up. Do you know what I mean at a kids' sporting events like soccer, baseball, basketball, where fans are getting upset and parents are getting upset and the referees are in the middle of it? You know, one of those kinds of things. So every call that the referee made was like a bad call. Well, at least according to the fans. And so things are getting a little riled up. So I needed to call a timeout. I mean, after all, it's toward the end of the game, 30 seconds left, we're up by 1 point, so call a timeout. Now, here's what coaches do, maybe during a timeout. They give a little speech, and it might be one sentence or two sentences, supposed to be a motivational thing, right? And so, I remember some of my high school football coaches. I can't repeat the language they use, but anyway, their coach speeches were pretty strong stuff, right? And so one time my high school football coach, his favorite word was fire truck. You think about that for a minute. So then he says to me, he says, if you don't fumble the snap, we're going to the playoffs. Don't fumble the snap. Blah, 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 blah. I did not fumble the snap, okay? So, and then when I was in college, my college tennis coach, I mean, this is weird, but he goes, you show them we mean business. I want you to hit that guy at the net as hard as you can with the ball. Hit him right in the chest, and yeah, that kind of could speak, right? So I call timeout, right? And I got these little sixth graders around me. Thank goodness I'm taller than sixth graders, right? So they're all around me, and here's what's happening. They're arguing with each other. How's that? Sixth graders. It's his fault. They did this, they did that, and the parents are screaming and yelling, and everything's kind of getting worked up, and, at that point, I got some options. I can say, well, let's win one for the Gipper. Or I can put on a Chip Kelly hat, right, and say, well, let's just win the day. So I got some options here, right, with these sixth graders. I could say this, hey, guys, it's been a tough season, I quit. That probably wouldn't go over so well. So I could say that, or I could say, fellas, it doesn't matter what we do. Let's have a pizza party right after we're done. That doesn't seem like a good option right then as well. I could say, hey, you know what? The ref is terrible. As soon as this game is over, we'll file a complaint. I will file the complaint with God. That didn't seem like a good option, right? So I don't have any good options. So call timeout. And I said, guys, I don't think you're listening to me. I don't think you're listening to you're not doing the plays, and some of you are throwing the basketball to players who don't have the same jersey you do. It's not going so well here. So you're winners. We're going to win this game. And here's the play. We have 30 seconds. We're going to win. You just do this. We're going to win. And sure enough, we do that, and we win the game. And so sometimes coaches call timeout, right? Call timeout. We got to talk. And so right now, as the pastor of the church, I'm calling timeout. How about that? Because what I'm sensing is that there's a lot of discombobulation, division. Just in our society, there's a lot of fighting, a lot of disagreement, COVID, politics, it's just on and on and on and on. It's just really at one of those points that we just need to take a chill pill at this time in our lives. And I find great comfort in the fact that I think the Apostle Paul does the same thing in this book we've been studying. So we've been going through this book called 2 Corinthians, and at the end of the book, it's almost like he calls time out, and he gives a summary statement, right? Now, the reason he needs to do this is because this church in Corinth, he's written 4 or 5 letters to them. We only have 2 of them. They are besieged with problems. They are getting drunk during communion. They are practicing sexual immorality like even the pagans don't do that, Apostle Paul says. You got a guy shacking up with his stepmom. That's not right. And just a variety of things of fighting and bickering and all those kinds of things. Paul goes, man, time out. And so this is what he's going to say. Here we go, 2 Corinthians 13:11. Paul says this, finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice. Strive for full restoration. Encourage one another, be of one mind, live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you. There are 6,500 words in the book of 2 Corinthians. This one verse has 30 words. And I read this verse and I went, it's a summary statement. It's his last thing he's going to say. It's the coach speech, and he's calling timeout. And in rapid fire succession, he gives 5 verbal commands in this verse. These are sometimes called imperatives, like you got to do this, as Paul's saying. It's like exclamation points on it. It's like when the manager of a baseball team comes out to the pitcher's mound. What do you think he's saying? Hey, did you try those brownies in the clubhouse? The manager's not saying that to the pitcher. He's saying something like, remember, throw the curveball low and away. The guy always swings and misses at those. Don't get the ball up. He's saying something like that. And I think that's what the Apostle Paul is doing right here. So what I want us to do is I want us to look at all 5 of these commands today. And I want to see how they apply to us. So here's the first one, and it's the word rejoice. And I'm going to phrase it this way: I got to choose joy. Seems like to me that often we cross the line of faith, we become Christians, we experience this new kind of found life. I'm forgiven, I get to go to heaven, my guilty conscience, that's been taken care of. All of those things are exciting at the beginning, and then somehow it's kind of like we're a tire that's leaking air out, and we lose our joy, and circumstances and social media and news coverage just drain us of our joy, right? We can get started great, and then it just kind of seeps away. And one of the things that really robs us of joy is conflict. If you're having conflict in your marriage, that robs you of joy. Having conflict in your home with your family robs you of your joy. Having conflict with your coworkers, your colleagues, that will drain your joy. Having conflict with your brother-in-law, that drains your joy. Whatever the case is, right? Those things rob the joy in your life is what happens to us as well. They just kind of suck it right out of us. Now then, it seems to me that joy is a decision. You can choose to have joy, or you can choose to be cranky. How many of you chose to be cranky when you got up today? Don't show those hands. I mean, I see those. Some people are pointing in the room. You got to choose joy. In fact, I'd say it this way: you can even choose happiness. Frank Minirth was a famous psychiatrist and Christian psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called Happiness is a Choice. And in that book, Dr. Minirth talks about how joy and happiness is a choice that we need to make. Because we should not allow circumstances, society, social media, news coverage, what our friends are saying, that email you got, we should not allow those things to dictate the amount of joy or happiness that we have in our lives. But what has happened is, for many of us, we read those kinds of things, we hear all this information, and we just go bonkers. We have all this stress and anxiety, and we feel all this struggle with this. But Paul finds joy in the midst of his situation. He says, rejoice. I just think about this guy named Paul who writes this, because he was beaten a number of times. And when I say beaten, he was beaten. The words used in the first century are filleted to the bone. I mean, he is really roughed up. Shipwrecked, stranded on an island, riots around him. But yet he says multiple times that he is joyful. How does that work? How does that work? Seems like we need that kind of joy today as well, lasting joy, because if it's your circumstances, you're going to be riding an emotional roller coaster. Here's what I suggest. You wake up in the morning, you just say to yourself, I'm going to choose joy today, and then you talk to God. You just talk to him right there. God, I'm going to choose joy today. Joy is found in a person, not in my circumstances. Here's what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4. He just said, in all my troubles, my joy knows no bounds. Knows no bounds. So Paul's in this situation, but yet he's choosing joy. And we got to do the same thing. Joy has to be a part of our lives. Here's the second thing he says, the second imperative command. I got to change my attitude. And I'm off those words, strive for full restoration. Strive for full restoration. Now, this word restoration, so Paul says, rejoice, strive for full restoration. The word there means to mend a broken bone. It's used sometimes, not all the time, as a medical term. Sometimes it's used about fishermen mending their nets. In Ephesians chapter 4, it's used of equipping believers to serve in ministry. So this is the word mending. And in fact, in some translations, it'll say aim for perfection. Because what Paul is talking about is our spiritual growth at this point. So once we accomplish joy, we need to strive for spiritual growth in our lives as well. So another way to think of it, a dictionary I have says it means to pull yourselves together. Just pull yourself together. First off, they need to pull themselves together and have a right relationship with Paul. This guy who started the church, lived with him for 18 months, they are backbiting and stabbing him in the back, basically, and all those kinds of things. And previously, a few verses before that, he says, you need to be restored to each other and to me. So he's talking about that kind of restoration, but it's more than that. I know it's more than that because he mentioned it several times throughout 2 Corinthians about idol worship as he writes to the Corinthians as well. He says, you got to pull your act together, basically. You're getting drunk at church. I made a list. They're getting drunk at church. They condone a guy shacking up with a stepmother. There's fighting and cliques. The idol worship. They're believing a different kind of gospel. They're even denying the resurrection in places and having some weird beliefs about that. You will never experience joy in a church setting where there's squabbling and bickering. You just will not experience that in your life. Pastor Rick Warren would often say it this way, that anything that causes this kind of disunity in a church is sinning. Those are strong, strong words. Now then, can people have differences of opinions about mask wearing, COVID, vaccines, politics, Afghanistan? Okay, the list can go on, and now we're all discouraged. But all of these things, can people have differences of opinion and still love each other? And the answer to that is yes. And I know that because we have a word for it, marriage. Right? I'm glad you laughed because I thought of that line in my office this week. Well, people disagree, but it's kind of like marriage. Right? And you kind of figure it out. And so Paul is telling this group, he says, you've got to change your attitude about some of these things. Some of the most caustic things I've seen and that people have shared with me, comments on social media, right? That does not help with restoration. I read this quote this week by Richard Exley. He says, there can be no restoration of the marriage, and he's talking about relationships in marriage here, without genuine forgiveness. Unfortunately, forgiveness doesn't usually occur until the anger has been dealt with first. So we sometimes need to deal with the conflict that's inside of us emotionally, that we feel such angst and stress and worry and those things inside of us. And then when we have those things, maybe we don't respond well to our spouse, to the people in our home, to the other students in the classroom, to our coworkers. We just don't respond well, right? I read this crazy story. I mean, it's just crazy story. So there's this theme park in Canada, and they have a rage room. Have you ever heard of this? And you can pay $20. In fact, this is 2 years old, so I bet it's $100 today. And you can go inside this rage room, and they give you like a bat and a golf club or a hammer, and you get to smash stuff up for 45 minutes. Yeah, and you can even bring your own stuff in there and smash it up. And one of the most popular things to smash up are old printers. Because that printer jams on you, and you're sick of it, and you bring it in and you smash it up. Or your modem that doesn't work well, this old computer that's way too slow, and you're frustrated. And they even said sometimes people bring in pictures of others, and they start smashing frames around. A rage room, right? And here's a couple quotes from it. We provide full-blown protective gear. You wear a face mask, chest protector, coveralls, gloves, and you must have closed-toed shoes as well. You're in the room for 45 minutes, smashing all these items. You come out of the room, and you'll be sweating. But you'll feel better. Guests are welcome to bring their own items, the most popular one being printers as well. So I got a better idea for you. Instead of vomiting that kind of way in a rage room, take all of that to the cross of Christ. Let's take it all there. The worry that you experience, the conflict in your soul, your angst against other people, all of those things that are causing such difficulty in your heart and in your relationships, don't take them to the rage room and take them out there. Take them to the cross of Christ. Because Jesus says this. Jesus says, you bring all of that here to the cross. You bring it to me. I'll take care of it. I'll give you a fresh start in life. Do you want a fresh start in life? Bring it to the cross. You want a fresh start in life? Talk to Jesus. You want a fresh start in life? Bring all the things that you're so worried about today and bring it to him. Go there first. Here's the third imperative command. It's encouragement. And I'm going to phrase it this way in an application way. I got to say it. So encouragement is something that you say. Sometimes it's translated to beseech thee, kind of King James language, or plead or urge. The word means to come alongside of somebody as well. And encouragement is one of those things, it's not rocket science, is it? But yet, it's a little bit to it. You know, one of the things you can do, you can be encouraging to strangers. So every Wednesday at 6 a.m. I go to, because it's the only restaurant open just about at 6 a.m., I go with this Bible study group at Elmer's. What a name. And so I've been going there for a couple years with these guys, and we have the same person waiting on us. And she's in fact, one day, she goes, she just knows all our orders. She just writes them down. Is this still the same order today? Everybody has the same thing. One guy switched from oatmeal to eggs, threw her way off. Just threw her way off. So, but we always try to say thank you and just try to. Now, it's one thing to be encouraging to a stranger, but how can we be encouraging to the people that we live with, that we really know well? What kind of words are we going to use? What kind of actions are we going to take to give encouragement to somebody else? So, in other words, we need to think this thing through a little bit. It's interesting that Paul uses the word encouragement a lot in the Bible. Peter and John seldom. In fact, I don't think Peter ever does. Maybe that just wasn't his personality, but Paul seems to be focused on it, that people need encouragement. Like never before, we need encouragement right now. You read the news, you read social media, you see what's going on in politics, Afghanistan, COVID, mass vaccines, and see, all of you are already worked up because I said those things. And what the people in your life need from you is not negativity. They need encouragement from you. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. I don't like that verse, but it's there. And here's why I don't like it, because my spiritual gift is trash talk. I got in so much trouble on Thursday. I needed to kind of get out of my office, stretch around, so I walked up to our new youth pastor's office, which is the entire second floor of the building now, because we're doing a little remodel over here in the other part. But so he's up there, John Krill. I said, oh, you hear that? I said, John, you play ping pong. And I'm thinking, I'm good at ping pong. I'm going to smash him. That's really what I thought. So we start playing ping pong, and I win the PING. And yeah, I did. And then I win the first point. I go, I'm going to skunk him. That's what I thought up here. And then all of a sudden he wins the next 9 points in a row. And we agreed to only play to 11. I'm like, holy cow, I should have kept my mouth shut. And then all of a sudden, I tied the score. I win the next 8, and it's 9-9. And then I said this, because my trash talk came out. I said, you're going to have trouble swinging your paddle because you're beginning to choke with both hands. My goodness, I lost the next 2 points after that. I lost 11-9. I had to walk away. I think there's been enough trash talk. What do you think? When it comes to putting people down, getting your little digs. All of those kinds of things, we need to be careful about that. Words can build people up or tear people down. Proverbs 12 says, anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers up. Kind word will cheer up. This probably needs to be repeated for everybody because here's the thing. We should not be practicing worry. Worry, fear should not be part of our vocabulary. We need to practice relaxed concern. Sure, we're concerned about those things. But I'm not going to walk in fear. I'm not going to let fear be that powerful thing that motivates the things that I do and say. But I can still be concerned. I don't need to be unwise about things. But I do need to trust Christ in all of those things in my life as well. So this week I'm at, I think it was Friday, I find out my neighbor has COVID. So he's married, they have 2 little kids. So I text him on my phone, because I have his phone number, we're neighbors. I said, hey, the neighborhood gossip says that you got COVID. Sorry, I entered into the neighborhood gossip, but the other neighbor told me he had COVID, and I'm just checking in. And he texted me right back. Oh, yeah, but we're doing fine. I said, hey, let us bring you over a meal. Mary and I want to bring you over a meal. Can we bring over some food? No. And I said, you stop it right now. I text him this. You need to ask your wife. Guys will always say no, but she's going to say yes. So you need to ask her right now. I'm not going to take no for an answer. I guess I'm being a little forceful, aren't I? So he texted me back in a few minutes. No, we're really good. I just talked to my wife, and everything's good. And I said, okay, but Mary and I are going to go to the restaurant. We're going to bring you back your favorite meal because you've been out of the house in 8 days. And what's your favorite restaurant? And then he goes, no, we don't need anything. We're really fine, Steve. We don't need anything. And I said, well, you probably need something. I'm just not giving up, right? Okay, so I finally take no for an answer. Then the next day, yesterday, I walk outside and he's talking to the mailman, right? So his little quarantine is over that day. And so I walk up and we begin to talk and, hey, how's everybody? His kids are up front. And then he goes, he's probably watching. Good to see you, man. So anyway, he says, Steve, I really appreciate that. One of the things that Mary and I decided at one point in our lives I've reflected on this deeply because of a story of a man named Father Damien who went to a leprosy island and he sacrificed his life basically to minister to people who had leprosy and to share the gospel. And there were so many people along the way that were desperate emotional loneliness and need that we just gave COVID hugs. We just hugged people. Now, I'm not saying that we were stupid about that, okay, in the way we went about that, but we are very calculated that this person needs to be hugged, and this is just what we're going to have to do right now. And it began to make me think, how are we willing to be like Father Damien and not let fear, not talking about not taking dumb risks, but to do the things that we need to care and love on people, to encourage them. And to me, that's significant because all throughout Christian history, Christians have sacrificed themselves for their brothers and sisters, financially, emotionally, helping other people along the way. So we're willing to do that, to hug people, to deliver food, to talk to people, to continually text them and call them. Here's the fourth thing. Here's the fourth thing that Paul says in this timeout. He's calling, I got to keep the main thing the main thing. And I get that from the phrase, be of one mind. At Grace Community Fellowship, we have a purpose statement, and here it is. Love people where they're at, help them follow Jesus. Love people where they're at, help them follow Jesus. A couple years ago, I had a consultant come in and helped us with our building program, and he goes, Steve, I have good news for you. Every single staff member, all your key leaders know that statement without me even having to really ask. That's what we do here. Love people where they're at and help them follow Jesus. And we got people all over the spectrum. We got people who you disagree with strongly. We got Republicans and Democrats and all this other stuff around, right? We got division. And it's so easy to focus on the things that divide us, but we need to focus on the things that really drive home the unity of the body of Christ, Jesus. But yet, the first thing we can do is flip on the news, start perusing social media, and get ourselves all worked up. But we got to keep the main thing. The main thing. I'll read you this quote, and I have no idea where I got it. I'd give the person credit. I didn't write this. Talk about what you believe, and you have disunity. Talk about who you believe in, and you have unity. So in other words, this person is trying to say, when you talk about the different things you believe in concerning politics or whatever, things today, but maybe it would be more helpful to talk about who we believe in. I think that's good. And I think it's good because we can be focused on many things that actually have no long-term benefit to ourselves or to the greater body of Christ or to our friends. But when we talk about who it is that we believe in, this thing called Christianity is not a relationship with a set of policies. It's a relationship with a person. You don't have relationships with inanimate things. You have a relationship with a real person. Jesus is alive. He's real. He's alive. That's who we have a relationship with today. So when we talk about keeping the main thing, what we're saying is that love people where they're at, regardless of their spectrum of belief: atheist, agnostic, Christian, Republican Christian, Democrat Christian, Libertarian Christian, just Green Party Christian, a masked person, an unmasked person, a vaccinated person, an unvaccinated person. And instead of firing off things about masks and vaccination, wouldn't the better approach to be, I love you, I hope you would consider doing that? Whatever your thinking is, isn't the better approach to do that instead of saying you're an evil person and labeling people? Well, you're just buying into the corrupt system. No, you're just this way. Come on. You do better than that. We have trouble getting along. Entire groups of people have trouble getting along. Muslims and Jews in the Middle East. Afghanistan is a mess. My friends in Myanmar are struggling for their lives. Anybody been part of a Little League baseball organization? Parent-teacher association? Soccer? A sporting thing? The music club? Where you have people, you can have people choosing sides and disagreements as well. I'm going to tell you about this story, and I've known about this story a long time. It just really touches me, and I hope it touches you. And a number of years ago, during the Desert Storm invasion, an ABC correspondent named Sam Donaldson, he's long since retired, he's interviewing a young soldier in a tank platoon just before the invasion of Desert Storm. And he asked this question: how do you think the battle will go? Are you afraid? The young soldier says, we'll do okay, we're trained, and I'm not afraid. And the GI then, he motions to all of his fellow soldiers behind him, right? His company behind him, platoon behind him, okay? And then when he does that, he says, I'm not afraid because I'm with my family. And then what happens in the interview is everybody says, tell him that again. Tell him that again. He goes, I'm not afraid because I'm with my family. And I got to thinking, that's how church ought to be. I don't need to worry in that unhealthy way because I'm with my family. I'm with those who support me and love me and encourage me. I have no reason to think otherwise as well. It's that kind of thinking that brings us together and unifies us because of what Jesus did for us. It's the bigger picture. Number 5, I got to be a peacemaker. He talks about peace. I read the weirdest story this week. It's about a woman named Jen Glantz, and she has this business where you can rent her to be a bridesmaid for and this is what caught my attention, $2,000. I'm thinking maybe they have rent a groomsman. Maybe I could $2,000. So she shows up just for the wedding, and she is introduced as a close friend of the bride. Now, sometimes she says that people, a bridesmaid can't make it, or there's a falling out of relationships, and so a part of the wedding party is not showing up. And so she gets hired to be a fill-in, but her role is not to run the wedding or anything like that. It's to be the bride's best friend on that day, which might be the most stressful day of her life. I don't know if you know this. I've done a lot of weddings that brides can get all stressed out during the wedding. I forgot my shoes, the food didn't show up, and cousin Sally over here hurt my feelings, and Aunt Gladys over here did this, and drama at a wedding. I know it's hard to believe, but man, is it there. And so this rent-a-bridesmaid is there to protect the bride from the trauma, right? And she's supposed to dance with a cranky uncle who is going to say something rude to get him out of the picture, right? They've prepped her on who to hang out with and to distract them. It's being a peacemaker. But unfortunately, you have to pay $2,000 for that. I'll do it for $1,000. I do it for $500. Yeah. It's so funny. When I do weddings and do the rehearsal, I'll gather everybody here and I'll say, hey, and I just know this from experience. My name is Steve Hill. I'll be officiating the wedding. I've met with so-and-so and so-and-so, and I know exactly what they want in their wedding. So don't talk to them. I'm in charge. I just say that because I've had people just, don't do that in your wedding. The flowers need to be over here, and this needs to be here, and you shouldn't walk in that fast. Let's walk in a little slower. Just stay out of it. The bride wants it this way. She gets what she wants. I'm here to make sure. Thank goodness I have good wedding coordinators. I don't have to do that job anymore. Be a peacemaker. That's what we should be about as well. John Wesley, a man who lived a couple hundred years ago, said, though we cannot think alike, we may not love alike. That's what it really means to be of one mind and essentially to become at peace with each other. Apostle Paul in the book of Romans says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. If it's possible. He's realistic. He also goes on to say, let us there make every effort to do what leads to peace and to mutual edification or mutual encouragement, we might say. And God places such a high value on his people living in peace. I've been reflecting upon a verse in the Bible that says, pray that we live quiet and peaceful lives. I yearn for that. Of course, I'd have to move to the North Pole probably, but so let me give you a little tip. What would it look like in your life if you stopped social media and news for 7 years? Okay, that's too much. 7 days? 7 days? Just take a breath. I think what the Apostle Paul is saying here, hey, time out. Let's strive for joy. Let's pull ourselves together. Let's encourage each other. Let's be of one mind. Let's above all be people who are peacemakers as well. I think that's what Paul is saying to us today.